Sinister and spine-chilling true. Christmas horror stories revealed. Haunting secrets uncovered. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that their new home, a creaky old house with peeling paint and warped floorboards, was alive. Alive with memories, whispers, and something much darker. The forgotten suburb of Ohio draped itself in a cold silence, where the holiday spirit seemed to dim more each passing year. As she hung Christmas decorations, trying to force some cheer into the air, a thrill of dread tingled up her spine when her fingers brushed against something unusual. An ornate glass ornament, ancient-looking and unblemished, lay tucked between dusty boxes. Its intricate design pulsed in the weak light like a heart, someone else's heart, long forgotten. "Mommy, can I play outside?" Lily asked, her wide blue eyes sparkling with innocent curiosity. Clara hesitated, glancing out the window. The backyard loomed dark, filled with thick shadows that danced among gnarled trees. "Just for a minute," she replied, feeling watchful eyes lingering on them. Over the days that followed, Lily began to talk about her friends she saw playing in the backyard. "They have pretty dresses and colorful hats," she exclaimed, laughter bubbling in her voice. Clara forced a smile, but her gut clenched. There was no one out there but the wind weaving through the trees. Late one evening after a long shift at work, she noticed something. Strange, scratchy messages carved into the walls. Words that seemed to scream from another time. Dread, sorrow, a warning. The fear gripped her heart, but she tried to push it aside. It was just her mind playing tricks. Just as Clara thought she could breathe again, the phone rang. A neighbor's voice, low and familiar, sent a shiver down her spine. "You should keep an eye on that little girl," he chuckled, as if sharing a dark joke. He knew her routine, called late when she was tired, reminding her of the solitude encompassing her. Each call left Clara more unsettled, drowning under the weight of dread. On Christmas Eve she learned the truth, an old story whispered among locals about the last family here. They had vanished without a trace 1 year ago, right around this dark holiday. Panic surged through her cells, igniting her survival instinct. She rushed to the local police, but the officers brushed her off. It was just stress, they said. Clara felt her sanity fraying. She was alone, utterly isolated. The evenings grew longer, and as she watched the neighbor's shadowy figure lurk outside, something primal stirred within her. That night, she felt it. A cold gust of air wrapped around her, the shadows creeping closer. Then, she turned, and Lily was gone, vanished from their own backyard. Heart thudding in terror, Clara flung open the door and screamed her name, the chilling silence answering her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Rushing through the suffocating silence of her new neighborhood, terror clawed at her gut. But then she spotted the neighbor. He stood there, a grinning specter under the moonlight. "Looking for her?" he purred, weaving tales about the past, words laced with menace. The chilling connection between him and the grim history of the vanished family tightened like a noose around her neck. Clara's heart raced as the frost-covered windows seemed to pulse with life. Shadows stirred, and her daughter's name echoed in the bitter night. Clara knew now they weren't alone. Something dark lingered, ready to drag them into the echoing silence of Christmas past. As the horrors unfolded around her, an undeniable question lingered. Could she protect Lily, or was it too late to escape the grasp of darkness? Panic surged through Clara's veins as she stepped back from the neighbor, her breath hitching in her throat. "Where is she?" The words burst forth, raw and desperate. The neighbor's eyes sparkled with a dark amusement. "Oh dear, Clara, she's playing a game, one she can't lose." The very air around her felt thick, as if the night itself were pressing in. suffocating her every thought. Clara turned back to the house, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. The figure of her daughter seemed to dance behind every tree, every flicker of movement taunting her, just out of reach. "Stay away from her," Clara screamed, rushing towards the back door. The wooden frame creaked ominously as she shoved it open. It was cold, colder than any winter she had ever known. The backyard stretched out before her, a barren wasteland of skeletal branches and unrecognizable shapes. "Lily!" Her voice echoed into the void, swallowed by the night. She turned in a frantic circle, searching for signs of her daughter. Slowly, tendrils of frost crept along the grass, strange patterns forming in the frozen earth under her feet. Clara's heart raced. She could almost see the whispers of the past swirling around her. That's when she noticed them. Shadows. Not just the familiar dark forms of trees, but something else. Something moving, swirling, shifting in the corners of her vision. Clara bit back a scream. The decorations she had hung only hours before now seemed to mock her, glinting with sinister intent under the pale moonlight, laughter embedded in their fragile glass. "Mommy!" The sound pierced through her fear like a beacon. Clara dashed towards the voice, heart hammering against her chest. "Lily, I'm coming!" She sprinted toward the small playhouse at the back of the yard, its paint chipped and faded under layers of frost. The door hung slightly ajar, creaking with each gust of wind. Clara hesitated, terror lapping at her heels like a wolf. She pulled the door open just enough to peer inside. "Lily?" The darkness within swallowed her voice whole. Silence, the kind that clawed at her ears, desperate and insistent. A faint flicker of movement caught her eye, something shifting in the corner. Holding her breath, she glanced deeper into the shadows. And then she saw them. Figures cloaked in tattered clothes, the faint glint of eyes staring back at her. They smiled, a chorus of twisted, joyful grins. Clara stumbled back, fear coursing through her like ice. "Who are you?" she demanded, though her own voice trembled. "We are her friends," one replied, its voice sweet yet dripping with malice. "And you'll never take her from us." The darkness throbbed, pushing in closer as Clara realized with dread that the shadows were moving, closing in. Fear clawed at her throat. She turned to run, but the air felt heavier, pulling her to the ground. "Lily!" she cried out once more, desperation fueling her. But the night laughed at her, a chilling sound that echoed through the trees. Suddenly she felt something wrap around her ankle, cold and clammy. Clara fell hard against the earth, dragging her down into the embracing shadows. Through the swirling darkness a haunting laugh echoed. "Welcome to our game." Clara felt her heart pounding, her pulse racing as she fought against the grip, but it only tightened. The darkness tugged at her, pulling her deeper into its cold embrace, promising secrets she was not ready to discover. She glimpsed a flicker of light at the far edge of the yard. Was it Lily? Was there any hope left? Just as she made up her mind to fight, a weary, hollow voice broke through the chaos, promising a truth more terrible than she could imagine. But clarity was just fading away, and as she was pulled further into the night, dread loomed ever closer. What was happening to her? To Lily? Could she escape the twisted game of shadows? Or were they already trapped in the stories of Christmas past? Clara felt the weight of the darkness crush her, wrapping its frosty fingers around her throat, squeezing tighter. The laughter grew louder, a cacophony of eerie glee, ringing in her ears like a death knell. The shadows danced around her, swirling against her desperate attempts to rise. "Lily!" she gasped, as icy breaths pooled in her lungs, constricting her voice. From the corners of the playhouse, the figures in tattered clothing began to emerge. They glided, barely touching the ground, their faces distorted into fixed, twisted smiles that chilled Clara to her core. She could see now, hollow eyes that mirrored the void around her, lips that twisted into an unsettling glee. They were not alive, not anymore. "Join us," one hissed, its voice like rusted metal scraping against the earth. "It's a splendid game." The words slithered into her mind, an invitation and a threat mingled together. Clara struggled against the bindings of darkness clinging to her limbs, fighting with every ounce of strength she had left. Even as she clasped the moist, cold ground, She grasped at the fading hope of seeing her daughter again. The shadows pulsed, and Clara twisted her head around, tears of desperation streaming down her cheeks. "Lily!" Her voice cracked, splintering in the chilled air. But there was nothing, just the mocking echoes of her own cries returning to her. "Once a child plays, she becomes one of us," another shadow crooned, forever lost in the game, in the joy of endless laughter. For a moment she hesitated, questioning if all this was real. Could she really have lost her daughter to this madness? When she thought of Lily playing innocently, her heart sank with the weight of love and sorrow. This was a nightmare made flesh, and she was the unwitting player. With a surge of horror, Clara found herself scanning the ground, searching for shadows of hope among the creeping tendrils of frost. There, a flicker of movement caught her eye again, a small figure darting between the labyrinth of twisted limbs reaching out. "Mommy!" Clara's heart leapt, buoyed by the sound of her daughter's voice cutting through the darkness. It beckoned her to fight through the suffocating haze. Gathering what strength remained, Clara pushed against the shadows, entrapping her. "Hold on, Lily, I'm coming." Just then, something sharp ripped through the fabric of her despair. A claw, cold and cruel, grasped her arm, pulling her back toward the dark figures. She screamed, a raw and primal sound that filled the dread-filled air. "No, let me go!" In a last desperate act, Clara whipped round, summoning every ounce of courage left in her. She clutched at the shadows surrounding her, aiming to cast them aside as she surged forward toward the flickering light. But it flickered, faded, and then vanished entirely as Clara stumbled, caught in a tangle of skeletal branches. Around her, the chorus of laughter swelled, mocking. "Where do you think you're going?" The shadows echoed, voices intertwining in a haunting serenade. "The game has only just begun." Clara glanced back, feeling the trap tighten. The figures leered, their eyes glinting eagerly, their smiles stretching grotesquely. She was less a player now and more a pawn, her fate weaving deeper into this web of horror. And then she saw it, a path illuminated briefly as a gust blew through the trees, casting light onto the backyard. Clara felt something stir within her, a primal urge to escape, a need to protect her daughter. "Clara, you can't leave," the vile voices echoed, pulling her toward them, drowning her thoughts in a sea of dread. But this time she wouldn't let them win. As she steadied herself, determined to carve a path through the horrors waiting, a whisper sliced through the growing storm. "If you can't find her before midnight, you will lose her forever." With that, the clock on the nearby church tower began to toll, the sound resonating through her very bones. Panic surged anew. She'd forgotten about time amidst the chaos. Clara turned back toward the fading glimmer of hope as she battled the clutches of darkness. Would she make it in time? Would she find Lily? Or were they already destined to become shadows trapped in a game with no escape? Each toll of the clock grew louder, the shadows shifting in anticipation, as if the night itself held its breath. Clara had to move, had to fight, but could she? The game was far from over. Clara's breath quickened, each toll of the clock echoing a countdown to despair. Desperation clawed at her throat as she scanned the shadow-laden yard. Where was Lily? The laughter grew sharper, a haunting symphony crafted from her nightmares. The appalling glee in their eyes made her stomach turn. "Mommy!" It was a distant cry, faint yet piercing. Clara strained to reach it, to stretch beyond the grip of the shadows. Every inch felt like wading through molasses, thick and unyielding. She had to fight, had to push through. The sound of laughter at her expense only spurred her on. "Can you hear her?" the voices taunted. "She's ours, forever lost to you." "No." Clara gritted her teeth, shaking her head to dispel their insidious whispers. She could feel the prickle of tears again, a stinging reminder that she was still human. She wouldn't give in. Not today. Not ever. With a sudden burst of resolve, Clara lunged forward, her heart hammering like a wild drumbeat in her chest. Ahead, the flickering light pulsed like a heartbeat, promising safety, if only she could reach it. The shadows shrieked in displeasure, lunging toward her. fingers stretching to grasp her waist to pull her back into their cold embrace. She felt the biting claws scrape against her skin, ripping at her sanity. "No!" she screamed, shaking them off. She had to keep going. The path began to crumble into darkness, but there it was. Lily's voice, clear, vibrant. "Mommy!" Clara took another step, the flickering light growing brighter yet more elusive. "Lily, I'm coming." She wove through a tangled forest of despair, dodging skeletal branches clawing at her clothes, whispering maliciously. "Join us! Join the game!" they chanted, a chorus binding her with overwhelming dread. "We can play together, forever." Clara pressed harder, desperation seeping into her bones. She couldn't let that be her fate. She had a choice, didn't she? She could fight. With urgency in her heart, she sprinted toward that fading hope. Suddenly, she stumbled over the rough earth, the ground giving way beneath her feet. She fell hard, pain jolting through her as darkness threatened to envelop her. Clara gasped, pushing her hands into the ground, propelling herself forward. But then she felt it, a warm glow against her fingertips. Clara turned her head. The light. It pulsed there, tangible and inviting. In that moment of clarity, she dared to hope. With all her might, she lunged toward the light, her fingers grazing its warmth. A sense of peace washed over her, instantly fighting against the icy penetrations of the shadows. But just as quickly, the warmth dimmed, the shadows swirling back, hungering. "Too late!" The voices echoed, a mix of glee and malice. "You'll never escape us." Their laughter rattled her, clanging against her skull like church bells signaling doom. Panic seized Clara, raw and real. "Lily!" she cried again, louder this time, desperation bleeding her voice. "I'm coming, just hold on!" The night around her shifted. The shadows quaked in anticipation, the air thick with their lurking hunger. But Clara would not let them win. The light flickered behind her eyes, a hopeful flame igniting courage. She pushed back against the tide, every ounce of fury aimed at breaking their hold. The shadows writhed, howling in protest. Then came another voice, soft yet clear, threading its way through the cacophony. "Mommy, please." Time slowed as Clara's heart seized with recognition. It was Lily. "Fight for me." Her daughter's plea broke through the laughter. "I'm here." Clara surged, compelled by a primal instinct to protect, to rescue. She stumbled forward, no longer just a player, but a mother, ready to battle the darkness itself. The clock ticked louder, each chime marking a decision, a moment where everything could shatter. Would she be able to save Lily and escape the evil clutches of the shadows? As the last bell tolled, the frail fabric of light dimmed further, suffocated by the shadows closing in. Clara felt the void slip beneath her feet as a primal scream broke free from her lips. Would she make it out alive? Or would the whispers of the damned claim her once and for all? The final moment was fast approaching, and the game had only just begun. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of rage and despair that reverberated through Clara's bones. As she pushed against the tide, she felt the ground quaking beneath her, as if it were alive, sensing the fear that coursed through her. The flickering light receded, teasingly close, dimming, pulsing, but always just out of reach. Lily's voice pierced the darkness again, filled with desperation. "Mommy, I'm scared!" Every word knifed through Clara, a raw reminder of everything that hung in the balance. She couldn't let the shadows take her daughter. Not today. "Stay with me, Lily!" Clara shouted into the void, her voice a thin thread against the swirling nightmare. With each guttural laugh that echoed, Clara felt her resolve harden. She could sense the shadows closing in, an insatiable hunger that promised to devour her whole. She was running out of time. Just a little further, she urged herself, eyes locked on the diminishing light. She could feel the tendrils of darkness wrapping around her ankles, pulling her back, insistent and cold. The laughter grew louder, mocking her with every step. "You'll never reach her. You'll always be ours." "No!" Clara screamed, pulling on every ounce of strength she possessed. She kicked at the dark, fought against the grip of despair that sought to drag her down. The laughter turned to howling as the shadows writhed in anger. She could feel them retreating, even as more seemed to materialize from the depths. And then, just as the last vestiges of hope flickered, she broke free. Clara stumbled into a clearing, the air electric with pulsing energy. The light enveloped her, a warm cocoon against the bitter chill. For an instant, the cacophony faded into silence. Her body trembled, not from fear but relief. It felt different here, like she stood on the edge of an uncharted promise. "Mommy!" Lily appeared before her, bathed in the light. Clara's heart soared, the joy almost dizzying. Her daughter's presence illuminated everything, banishing Shadow's threats to the corners. But as Clara rushed forward, her arms outstretched, the warmth faded. The shadows recoiled but quickly reformed, coiling back to reclaim their prize. "Join us, little one," they hissed, voices a sickly sweet coo meant to lure. "You'll be so much happier with us." Lily's face twisted in confusion, her innocent eyes glistening with fear. "Mommy, I don't want to." "Lily, listen to me," Clara pleaded, scrambling forward, but the ground beneath her shifted, becoming treacherous. She felt herself slipping, losing the solid earth beneath her. With a feral scream, Clara lunged, grasping for her daughter. But the shadows surged forward, wrapping around Lily and consuming her in an instant. "No!" The torment shocked her, dragging Clara deeper into despair. "Lily!" She knelt, clutching her head where the laughter clawed at her thoughts. The darkness rippled and pulsed, pregnant with malice. "Mommy." A distant whisper threaded its way through the chaos, faint yet unmistakable. Clara's heart leaped. Was it real, or just another trick? Suddenly she glimpsed a flicker in the darkness, Lily's face. Was she trying to come back? Clara surged to her feet, her spirit igniting with renewed determination. "I will find you," she screamed, every ounce of love pouring into her words. The shadows recoiled, perhaps disturbed, perhaps confused. Her shout was powerful, raw, fierce. Clara squared her shoulders, prepared for a final battle. "Fight, fight for her!" she roared, defiance ringing in her chest. But just as she stepped forward, the world around her trembled violently. The light began to flicker again, and for one agonizing heartbeat, Clara felt herself being pulled in two directions, toward safety or back into the clutches of shadows. Where was Lily? The shadows were hungry, ravenous for defeat. Would the bond of mother and daughter prove strong enough? Clara's heart raced as she felt the fabric of reality threatening to tear apart. And in that moment, as she grasped into the void, she understood. They were not just fighting against darkness. They were fighting for their very souls. The next step held a choice. Would she shatter the veil between them, or would she fail? Time seemed to stand still, and the real game was about to begin. Clara's heart thundered in her chest as she stood at the precipice of despair and defiance. She clenched her fists, almost desperate to reel in the flickering hopes and fears that swirled around her like smoke. "Lily!" she cried out again, her voice raw, an ember against the growing void. The shadows seemed to pause, momentarily bewildered, as if they fed off her chaos. For just a second, the air thickened with tension. Was it working? Then the dark surged forward, a torrent of claws and shrieks aimed for her throat. Clara felt their cold breath like ice creeping over her skin, aiming straight for her soul. An unsettling echo echoed, her daughter's laughter twisted into a sinister mockery. "You can't save her, Mommy. She's ours now." No. The thought pierced her mind like a dagger. Clara gritted her teeth. She had to make a choice, a desperate gamble. Would she dive into the shadows to face whatever horrors they held, or cling to the light that had become so elusive? Clara bit her lip, visions of her Lily flooding her mind, the innocence, the joy. The shadowy grasp threatened to consume every last memory. She made her choice. "Embrace me," she shouted defiantly, as she cast herself into the darkness, ready to face the nightmares for her child. The shadows writhed and twisted, welcoming her fall with a deafening roar. The air turned thick and foul, suffocating and rancid. Clara struggled to breathe as the dark pressed in on her. Whispers filled her ears, thousands of voices layered upon each other, shrieking with triumph and anger. "You belong to us! You'll know true despair. No, Clara screamed, her voice like shattering glass amidst the screams. Get away from me. Suddenly, another voice, soft and familiar, rose above the cacophony. Mommy. The sound sliced through the tempest, a fragile beacon in the storm. Clara strained to follow it. With every ounce of willpower, she fought against the pulling sensation, clawing deeper into the shadows. Fear encased her heart, but love propelled her forward. She grasped for that voice, yearning to bridge the void that threatened to consume them both. Lily, I'm coming, hold on. The shadows snarled, flinging tendrils around her, attempting to bind her, to drag her back. Cold tendrils snuck under her skin, icy fingers tracing up her spine, curling around her throat. With every inch fought, the world around Clara shifted and screamed. The sounds of anguish and joy collided, a thunderous clash of two civilizations unleashed in battle. Suddenly the darkness peeled back like a veil, revealing glimpses of a world she had never known. Horrific faces twisted in rage, eyes like black holes consuming the light. In that blink, Clara felt molten terror surge through her veins, a place of echoes and sorrows, of trapped souls who had lost their way. The air vibrated with the darkness, hatred, and emptiness. It didn't just seek to claim them. It craved their very essence. Distracting herself from the encroaching dread, Clara took a deep breath and surged forward. Lily, she cried, determination igniting in her gut. The shadows recoiled, not ready to let her go so easily. Stop fighting, they hissed, pain lacing their voices. All will be yours if you just surrender. But she felt it, the slight squeeze of her girl's hand in return, the flutter of hope burning like a tiny spark. Together, Lily, we can do this, she shouted into the darkness. The shadows screeched, furious at the uprising of their prey. Clara felt a crack of light breaking at her fingertips, a spark igniting through the suffocating horror. She could see Lily's small figure again, flickering behind the tendrils of darkness. Mommy, please, the voice cried. And just as the shadows drew closer, tightening their grip with malevolent purpose, Clara's determination boiled over. She couldn't stop now. The abyss roared around her, but she had to believe. With a final roar, she let loose every ounce of love, every ounce of terror into the swirling void. You don't own us. We are stronger than you. Their grip faltered, shadows buckled, and for a heartbeat, Clara believed they might escape. But something changed in the darkness, a rumbling beneath her feet that set her instinct into a panic. Before she could react, the ground trembled violently, pulling her apart. It felt as if reality itself wavered. The light pulsed dangerously, flickering like a dying star on the edge of oblivion. Mommy, help! Lily's voice became lost in the roaring void as Clara felt herself being torn in two. Lily, she screeched, stretching her hands towards her daughter in desperation, a futile reach against the shadows that yanked her farther away. The shadows coiled tighter, whispering lies that echoed in Clara's mind. This is the end. You will never see her again. With dread pulling her down, Clara realized the inevitable truth. They had to find each other, or they'd be forever lost to the darkness. And then it hit her. What if the shadows feared something even greater than the binding darkness? What if the bond they shared had the power to break through? She took a deep breath, every ounce of determination boiling inside, feeling the fury constricting around her. What if, she whispered, piecing everything together, what if we fight them not just as mother and daughter, but as one? And with that chilling thought lingering, the air crackled with a new kind of energy, different from the grasping darkness. An answer hung on the threshold. Would they piece together the strength to shatter the shadows, or would they slip through the cracks, forever unanchored and lost in horror? The silence fell heavy, laden with dread, but whispered a single thread. Let's see what happens next. Clara felt a surge of heat burst from within as the thought took shape, but it was too easy to doubt. What if their bond wasn't enough? The darkness around her pulsed in response, sensing her hesitation, feeding off the uncertainty. Together, Lily, she cried again, her voice trembling but firm. Suddenly the shadows shrieked, an anguished symphony of fury spinning around her. Clara squeezed her eyes shut, envisioning Lily, her sweet giggles, the innocent spark in her eyes. She could almost feel her, like a tether pulling her from the brink. Focusing on that bond, Clara shouted into the dark, "We are family! We are love! You can't tear us apart!" The shadows shrieked louder, the anguish in their cries mixing with a sinister laughter. "You think love can stop us? Love is what binds you to despair." Clara's heart raced. It felt absurd, yet she had nothing left to lose. "If I must crumble," she thought frantically, "I'll do so with my daughter in my heart." The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if gripped by confusion. In that split second, she reached into the depths of her soul and unleashed every ounce of love she had for Lily. The light she summoned pushed against the suffocating darkness. It flickered, strained, then ignited, illuminating the grotesque forms within the churning blackness. "Feel this," Clara roared again, warmth radiating outward like a shockwave. The dark figures writhed, the profound shadows retreating beneath the roaring tide of love that rolled forth, a tsunami shattering their fortress. Each monstrous face twisted in agony as Clara drove forward, aided by the pulse of light. "We won't be yours. You will never consume us." Lily's voice pierced through the chaos once more, trapped yet unyielded. "Mommy, I see you." Clara turned her head, focusing on the flicker of hope amongst despair. A bright shimmer was forming, outlining Lily's small figure caught in the grasp of the shadowy tendrils. Clara plunged through pain and doubt, forcing her way towards that flicker. "Hold on, baby. I'm coming." But the darkness fought back with violent wrath, a tempest of despair shattering around her. The whispers grew louder, vicious and laced with venom. "Embrace the despair. You can't escape." Yet she pressed on, adrenaline pulsing through her veins. "I won't let you take my daughter," she gasped as the shadows thrashed, desperate to engulf her. Suddenly, the ground beneath Clara lurched violently, sending her tumbling into a chasm that yawned wide, a pit of obsidian emptiness. "Lily!" she screamed, feeling her own essence crack and splinter while grasping at the unseen edges of reality. But in the deep, a spark ignited. Clara felt a surge of warmth intertwining with that of her daughter, as if their combined strength could form a bridge over the abyss. "Together," she whispered, and it surged through her, a rallying call for unity. The shadows shrieked in rage, a cacophony of despair, but Clara felt a change. "Yes, they fear us." A brilliant pulse of light erupted from where their hands almost connected, radiating outward and causing the darkness to wail in agony. Clara saw a shift, shadows breaking apart, chaos diffusing. But with liberation came a chilling realization. Wounded and howling, the dark was shifting, morphing into something else, more sinister. It coalesced into a new form, towering and grotesque, eyes gleaming with malice. "Foolish mortals," its voice echoed, vibrating with centuries of rage. "You think you can resist?" Clara's heart sank, panic clawing at her chest. "Lily," she whispered, sensing her daughter's fear mingling with her own. "Mommy, we can't stop now," Lily cried, her voice a trembling echo that would spur her on. The terrible entity laughed, a rasping sound of torment. "You will know true despair soon enough." Clara clutched at the lingering thread of hope between them. She had forged their connection once. Perhaps they could do it again. "Lily," she shouted, "we dive into the light together, now!" But as the darkness surged, Clara faced a terrifying question. Could they overpower this embodiment of hatred? Or was it too late to save themselves from the encroaching void? The shadows loomed larger, eager for a feast, and Clara's breath quickened. Could love truly triumph against such insatiable evil? Over the agony, an echo of daring hope remained. "We're not done yet." The ground below Clara trembled, as if echoing the heartbeat of the monstrous entity looming above. Shadows twisted and coiled, their malicious energy suffocating her. Yet she thrust her fists into the darkness, pushing against the suffocating dread. "Lily!" she shouted again, bridging the gap with desperation as her pulse raced. The light flickering from their connection illuminated the walls of the chasm, revealing grotesque faces etched with agony, their mouths stretched in silent screams. "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily's voice wobbled, resonating deep in Clara's heart. "I know, baby, but we're together. That's all that matters." Clara felt the warmth of love pulsating within her, the strength of their bond weaving a protective fabric. But the entity recoiled slightly, its eyes narrowing with newfound fury. "Ha! You think warmth can shield you? I'll consume it all." It lunged forward, tendrils snaking out like serpents, snapping toward Clara with ferocity. Clara ducked, the air thick with malevolence. "This is our fight," she gasped, raising her arms. The light flickered madly, struggling against the darkness. "Together," she whispered, every ounce of hope and love pressed into the syllables. The silhouette of her daughter wavered, but the connection pulsed back, a flash of brilliant energy splicing through the black. The shadows screamed, echoing with fury as Clara summoned every memory of Lily. The warmth of laughter, the tenderness of cuddles, the image of her in a sunlit meadow. The darkness shrieked in upheaval. "We will not yield," it bellowed, a reverberation of centuries of torment. The malevolent form twisted grotesquely, its many limbs recoiling as Clara's light surged with newfound vigor. "Fight with me, Lily," Clara shouted, feeling her daughter's essence coalesce with hers. "Don't let go." "I won't, Mommy, I'm here." The voice mingled with an electric spark, a comet streaking through the depths. With a deafening roar, Clara thrust her hands forward, channeling all her love and rage into an unstoppable wave. Light exploded from her fingertips, illuminating the cavernous darkness, scattering shards of shadow like broken glass. The entity screamed, convulsing violently, yet it refused to dissipate. "Your love is a paltry weapon," it spat, coal-black eyes gleaming with malice. The shadows writhed, twisting hungrily toward the light, trying desperately to reclaim what it lost. Clara's heart thundered in her chest. "We are stronger than your hatred. We are united." The pulse thrummed louder, and an even brighter halo encircled her and Lily, emboldening their connection as it surged forth. But the darkness fought back with relentless cruelty, closing in from every side. Clara felt the bitter chill against her skin, the weight of despair pressing down like iron chains. "Don't give in," she shouted, her voice becoming hoarse, but determination ignited her will. "Trust me. You are my light. We are family." As Clara squeezed Lily's outstretched hand within the flickering glow, a sudden silence draped over them. The shadows froze, their forms watching, waiting for a moment of weakness. Then, as if sensing their doom, they surged upward, a ravenous wave ready to engulf everything in its path. "Mommy!" Lily's voice cracked, terror rippling through their bond. "Together!" Clara bellowed, unwavering, drawing her light into a single, blinding point. The shadows lunged, but Clara felt the weight of the world shatter around her, an unfathomable roar echoing in their wake. Then, with a rending force, the darkness exploded. In the next heartbeat, silence. A deceptive calm crept through the chasm, leaving Clara breathless. Did we win? The question trembled in the air as the trembling light diminished, shadows receding like mist. Clara steadied herself, cautiously feeling the weight of the darkness retreat. "Not yet," she murmured, a cold dread creeping in. The remnants of sinister laughter lingered on the edges of her mind, taunting. It felt too easy, too quiet. Then a whisper filled the void, slithering through her thoughts. "You think you've won? This is only the beginning." What awaited them in the depths of darkness now? Clara's heart raced with dread. The battle was far from over. A chill crept through the chasm, prickling Clara's skin. Silence hung heavy, but her heart didn't cease its frantic drumming. "Lily?" she whispered, her voice shaking. The flickering light dimmed, casting long, haunted shadows that danced mockingly around her. There was something wrong. "Mommy." Lily's voice was faint, a distant echo fading just as fast as the warmth around them. The connection wavered, flickering like a dying candle. Fear clenched Clara's gut. "No, no, no," she gasped, reaching out for her daughter. "Stay with me." But the darkness poured back in, thicker, more menacing. It bellowed, "You think your bond holds power? I will tear it apart." The laughter twisted into a shriek that vibrated through the chasm. Clara felt the shadows slithering around her ankles, cold and clammy, their tendrils tugging at her. Panic surged. "Lily, hold tight!" She strained against the pressure closing in, fighting the darkness with every ounce of strength she had. With each heartbeat, each second, the abyss whispered promises of despair. Suddenly the ground quaked again, and Clara stumbled, dropping to her knees. The cave walls began to shift and morph, faces writhing in a silent torment, their expressions echoing the horror that was now all too familiar. Clara's breath quickened, fear suffocating her once more. "Mommy?" The voice was so distant now, notes of confusion wrapped in fear. "Lily!" Clara's scream tore from her throat, raw and desperate. The shadows pulsated, a living mass. "You waste your breath, Mother," it hissed, unfurling long, dark limbs. "Your little girl is mine now." "I won't let you take her," Clara shouted, the impenetrable urge to protect her child igniting inside her. She clawed against the chill, forcing the memories of Lily into the forefront of her mind. The time they built a snowman in their backyard, laughter mixing with the crunch of snow beneath their boots. "I won't lose you." With every thought, the light flickered back to life, pushing against the shadows. Clara felt its warmth surrounding her. She forced herself to stand, trembling but resolute. "We are love. We are family." The shadows recoiled, hissing as they struck against the light. Clara bolstered herself, channeling every ounce of her being into a single thought, her heart pulsing with the bond that tied them together. Then darkness surged once more, crashing over her like waves. Clara stumbled back, falling to the cold stone floor of the chasm. She gasped as icy fingers encircled her throat, tightening relentlessly. "This is your end." She clawed at her throat, desperation surging. "No, Lily, fight it." Just as Clara feared she would succumb, a flicker of light burst forth from deep within, a response to her plea, to their bond. The connection bloomed like a wildfire, radiating warmth and power. "I'm here, Mommy," Lily's voice rang out, tremulous, yet strong. As the shadows writhed and screamed, Clara's resolve solidified. She felt Lily's strength merge with hers, igniting a blaze of light that shattered the grasp of darkness around them. In the blaze, Clara saw what had been hidden before, the true form of the entity. Forged from nightmares and despair, it loomed monstrous and twisted, thrashing helplessly. "Face me!" Clara roared, her voice echoing with the power of 100 mothers. But then the shadows reformed, rippling and growing more ominous. "You may have won this battle, but the darkness will always return," it rasped, before a deafening roar filled the chasm, a promise of horror yet to come. And with a sudden burst, Clara felt herself being yanked down, the ground collapsing beneath her, plunging into what felt like an endless void. "Mommy!" Lily's voice, pure and panicked, echoed in the darkness. As Clara fell, glimmers of light flickered away, fading into nothingness, the last remnants of their bond slipping through her fingers like sand. What lay in wait for them in this abyss? Was there truly an end, or was this just the beginning of an unimaginable nightmare? Clara's world erupted into chaos as she plummeted through the unforgiving void. The darkness swallowed her, twisting and writhing like a living creature, cold tendrils grasping desperately at her limbs. As she sank deeper, the screams of the shadows filled her ears, a relentless chorus of triumph that clawed at her sanity. "Mommy," Lily's voice echoed, a fragile thread pulling Clara back from the brink. She reached out, her fingers grasping at the emptiness, desperate to latch onto anything, her desire to protect her daughter surging like a primal fire within her. "Stay with me, Lily," Clara pleaded, her voice cutting through the dark like a beacon. "I won't let you go." As if in response, the darkness shuddered violently. Clara felt a surge of warmth, a flicker of light awakening within her. With every heartbeat, the love for her daughter pulsed stronger, illuminating the shadows around her with sparks of defiance. "No, you cannot fight us," the voices howled, a piercing cacophony that echoed off the walls of the void. Grasping shadows clawed at her, whispering venomous lies that scraped against her psyche. "Embrace despair. It is the only way." Clara shook her head, clenching her jaw. "I will not give in. I am more than despair, I am a mother." Raw determination ignited within her, and she summoned the warmth of the memories she had with Lily, the simplest joys of baking cookies or snuggling under blankets while watching movies. With each pulse of light, the darkness seemed to retreat, writhing in fury at her refusal to succumb. "Together!" Clara roared into the void, feeling a surge of power coursing down her arms like electricity. She pictured Lily's face, brightened by laughter, and with that image, she reached deeper into the well of love within her heart. The shadows surged forward with a vengeance, their icy claws snapping at her thoughts, but she held firm. "We are a family. Nothing can tear us apart." Suddenly, she caught sight of a flicker up ahead. The glow from where the dark clung to the edges suddenly burst to life. "Lily!" The name echoed through her bones, igniting a blazing fire of hope. She propelled herself toward it, the warmth intensifying as it enveloped her. Then Clara felt a rush, a wave of energy that revitalized her spirit, intertwining with Lily's essence. Clara stretched her arms wide, pooling all their energy into a single point of luminescence. "Now!" Clara cried, their voices merging into one powerful union. The explosion of light that surged forth obliterated the darkness, scattering the ominous tendrils like ashes caught in the wind. Clara felt the entity quake as it was pulled apart, the suffocating dread easing like a distant memory. For a moment, there was silence, a stunning, profound silence that filled her with solace. Then she saw Lily, her daughter standing bathed in a golden glow. "Mommy!" she shouted, rushing toward Clara as if time itself had paused. They collided, arms wrapping tightly around each other, a bond unbreakable against the horrors they had just faced. Tears flowed freely as Clara embraced Lily, the weight of their struggle flooding through each shared heartbeat. "We did it, baby," she gasped, brushing her fingers through Lily's hair, the warmth of their union healing old wounds. "We are free." But the shadows writhed in the background, simmering with anger that echoed like distant thunder. "You may escape this time, but you can never escape the darkness within." Clara pulled back, resolute determination hardening her expression. "Darkness can never snuff out love. We will always rise again." With fury igniting their spirits, Clara and Lily focused on the light that anchored them. They pushed forward together, feeling the energy ripple into a wider arc, pushing the shadows further away, scattering the dark into the corners of this abyss. With one last surge, Clara and Lily banished the remnants of the darkness. They pulled together, allowing the brilliance of their bond to slice through the yawning void. A blinding flash erupted, engulfing everything. As the brilliance shone, Clara held on to the warmth of the moment, anchoring herself within joyful memories. Light wrapped around them, and as it burst forth, the world began to shift. When the luminosity faded, Clara found herself standing in their backyard, the bite of winter air brushing against her skin. Every shadow was gone. The world felt impossibly bright and alive once more. "Mommy," Lily's voice broke through, sweet and innocent. Clara turned, her heart soaring. Her daughter stood beaming at the edge of the yard, surrounded by the glimmer of sunlight filtering through the trees. Clara knelt, laughter spilling out through tears. "You're here, my beautiful girl." They rushed to each other again, holding on tightly, fear melting away. "Where were we?" Lily asked, eyes wide with the innocence of childhood. Clara kissed her forehead, a wave of love washing over her. "Nowhere that matters. We're home now." As they stood together, a familiar warmth spread, a promise that no darkness could ever touch them. The shadows, though fading, lingered at the back of Clara's mind. She knew they would always exist, a truth inherent in every story. But together, they would be stronger, and the love that burned brightly could defeat even the darkest nightmares. As daylight sparked anew, Clara felt a fierce joy surge within her. This was their story, and they would write it together, free from the burdens of the past. And so, under a clear sky, they embraced their future. Thank you for being part of this journey. If you enjoyed this story, you need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive tales we have in store for you. Smash that like button. Your support really makes a difference. Let us know your reactions and theories about the ending in the comments. Your voices matter. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who love a good thrill. They'll thank you for it. We can't wait to see you all again soon.